Good morning. Not my usual. I'm not in the parking lot of Walgreens. So that's something new. It has been a while. And it's not for lack of wanting to do videos, it's more for a lack of, I have just not had the energy to do videos. But I have been literally forcing myself to do stuff like going back to the gym, even if it's just like walking on the treadmill for half an hour and then doing some Nautilus. And I've been working more, which has been great. Yeah, but I wanted to, since I am in the thick of this, and you know me, I pretty much put it out there and tell it like it is. And I know that in the past, when I have talked about what I'm going through with caregiving, that people have written me, they have personally written me in my email about they're going through the same thing, and how they feel going through it. And I am actively in caregiver burnout, but I will leave that for another video. Again, I plan on I'm making myself do these. It's good for me because otherwise I found myself laying in bed and just scrolling. And I've actually deleted social media except for YouTube. And so, but today, what I want to talk about, because I am still dealing with it, I didn't think it would be this arduous of a process from a woman I talked to when my mom lived in the 55 plus. She's like, oh, yeah, the elderly waiver. She was like, oh, we did that with my dad. We just applied. It went through easy, no big deal. I'm like, oh, great. That'd be great. Yeah, not so much. Not so much for me anyway. Um, so if you don't know, I'll take you back a little bit. So my name's Tracey. I lived in a van for the last 3 years, and my life has been turned upside down. Um, and well, over a year now. Um, and I am the sole person. I had one brother, five sisters. Um, my sister passed away at 42 from cervical cancer. My other sister is in assisted living herself. She had strokes when she was 61. I believe she's like 71 now. My brother passed away about 5 years ago now from colon cancer at 61. He may have turned 62. He died 2 days after his birthday. I think he was 61 when he passed away. Gosh, time has been a blur for me. I don't know years from months from days anymore. Um, and if you don't know, my mom is in litigation with my other sister. And then my other sister, um, she's just not involved. Let's just put it that way. So it's me, and I'm the baby of the family. Uh, but what I have had to go through, so my mom, she just turned 95 last week, and she's legally blind. She has macular degeneration. And so when I took over power of attorney, which was about a year ago, just a little over a year ago, um, she had about $50,000 left in her account. That was all the assets that she had. She didn't own a house. She didn't have any stocks or bonds or anything like that. And even though I was paralegal for over 42 years, unless you work in a specific area of law, uh, you don't know the legalities of like probate. And so at the time, I was, um, I had anxiety because I did not know how I was going to move her into a facility with only that amount of money. I didn't know how it worked. I've never looked into it before. And this is why I'm sharing all this stuff, because I truly, truly, truly do not want you, or with your parents, hopefully, if your parents are old enough, young enough to start the process now, to, start working with getting trusts, having living wills. Heck, even I've watched YouTube videos about people, and I've talked to people too about, how parents, and I think this is kind of from, it's a generation thing, that, they have a house and they have all this stuff in the house, and, it's antiques or it's whatever, and they think their kids want all this stuff. I think we're at a point of, we're such consumers that we don't want any more stuff. And if we want it, we want to buy it new, other than maybe heirlooms or sentimental things. But when a parent or a loved one passes away and they have a house and it's full of stuff, that just leaves the burden to the children or the child or whoever, to have to clean out the house. And if you're already going through, something like I am, it's just more added stress on top of what you're already dealing with. And so, again, my sister, before she landed where she did now in this assisted living home, which is a really nice one, she's well taken care of. She was in California when she had the strokes, and then she had gone to Chicago. A friend had found her. Long story. Anyway, so we had to go to Chicago. She was in an awful, awful, awful facility. I can't even, maybe that's a story for another time. But so these are what images that were conjured up. Then she came to Minnesota. We got her here, and she was in, quote unquote, a nursing home. And that was a nursing home that, in my mind, is what I think of nursing homes. When I was younger, I used to volunteer at a nursing home, and my sister had to live, and my sister, was relatively young. She was 61 or 62 at the time. And she had to live in a room, probably about the size of this room, with another woman. And they both had TVs. They both had them going on at the same time. And it smelled like a nursing home. It just was that experience, what your mind conjures up if you're someone around my age. And so I did not want her to go there, like somewhere like that. But I didn't know what you do to not do that. I didn't even know where to start. And I had not even heard of an elderly waiver until my mom had a friend in the 55 plus, and I talked to her daughter, and we just happenstance ran into each other and started talking. And her husband actually works in the system, and she had told me about it. What is this elusive elder waiver, and how do I get it? And so, because I didn't know what she was going to do, because by that time, keeps dwindling down. And so I looked up elder waiver and got more information about it. Again, I talked to another woman at her place that her and her sister had done it for her dad. And so I'm going to read some stuff, and I want to preface this too. I am in Minnesota. So what I'm going to be talking about is Minnesota and how it works here. But I'm assuming that is probably pretty similar in other states. But again, you'll have to look that up for yourself. But I am going to tell you, like, what I'm going through here and how it works here. And again, I don't know how it's not more known, especially since, we're in the baby boomer generation and there are more facilities now. And I will tell you, there's a lot more facilities that are not the narrative that I had just explained. And I do want to say the staff too, where my sister was, even though it was like what I thought was a nursing home, I mean, the staff was amazing there. Um, and so I started researching about this elder waiver. And I'm going to tell you, so I'm going to look down. I have my computer in front of me because it's a lot of information and I don't want to get anything wrong. And I want to tell you exactly what it says. So forgive me if my eyes go down. So the elderly waiver services in assisted living. I am going to tell you also when I did apply. So my mom moved from one county to another because that's where her assisted living is. It's in a different county than she was in. Um, that when I called them to learn how to apply, when I called the county, they have a specific department for elder waiver. So that's who you want to call. And they told me that I had to fill out, and I'll get into this, but it was called Min Choice. So that was separate, which is that's a social worker that comes out to assess, like, the care that they need, or if they would even be able to apply for a waiver. And then there's another separate thing is the medical assistance application. And so they said, okay, go on the website and apply for this. So I went on the website and I found the medical assistance thing and I applied for that. I did not know there's a separate one for the elder waiver and assisted living. So if you need to go through this at some point, if you're going through this now and you're just hearing about the elder waiver, or if you're in the middle of it, just know that, and I'm talking about Minnesota, but again, I'm assuming it's other places too, that there is a specific form to fill out through the county just for assisted living for Medicaid, medical assistance. And that's what the elder waiver is through. Again, I'm learning as I go. I didn't know this before, and that's what it is. Got my coffee. Okay, let's get into it. So the elder waiver service in assisted living is through the Department of Human Services. So the DHS, the Department of Human Services. So that is who you're going to reach out to about the elderly waiver. First thing that comes up on the website is need help paying for services. If you are considering a move to assisted living, make sure you have explored all your options. You may qualify for elderly waiver services or other services to help you stay in your home instead. So they have different programs to help. My mom's 95. She was already in a 55 plus. Again, she is legally blind. And it was getting to the point where I can't, I'm 59. I just turned 59. I have to work myself. I can't take care of everything. Do the grocery shopping, everything that needs to be taken care of, all the bills, the medical stuff, the trips to the doctor, all that stuff. So hence why she was moving into assisted living. What you also need to know is if you need help paying for services, whether at home or in assisted living, the elderly waiver may be an option based on your eligibility. The elderly waiver is, and this is Minnesota, a Minnesota medical assistance program for people who qualify based on their care needs, total assets, and income. Again, my mom has no assets other than like the cash that she had. And the only income she has is Social Security. And it's just a little over $2,000 a month that she brings in. And this is very, very, very important. Not all assisted living facilities accept residents receiving elderly waiver services. Some limit the number of residents in facilities who are receiving elderly waiver services. So had I not known this before I went in, and thank goodness for the lovely people that I've run into, when she was in the 55 plus, she was in a different county, and I finally got her a social worker there. She was on the CDCS program only for like 8 weeks, but her social worker there helped me so much. When she knew I was looking for assisted living. She gave me a list of all of places that accepted elderly waivers, which was a tremendous help because once we started touring, I knew that, and I asked them if they accepted elderly waivers. And yes, they did because they were on the list. Okay. And again, some of these were better than others. Uh, how they, what is it, charge they were all totally different. Some were on tiers, some were, it's funny, some were, a couple cost like $8,000 a month. And the rooms that they showed was just a room like this with no, and it just had a bathroom, but it had no like refrigerator, no like kitchenette. And so it was just like pretty much living in a broom closet. Because if that's where you're going to spend most of your time, it's really not a way to live. You want to have snacks, and there was nothing. There were no cabinets on the walls. There was no storage. It was basically four walls and a bathroom. And so I was so surprised to go to different ones and see how some who had better accommodations charged less. And a lot of them are a la carte. And so you pay a base fee for like the rent. And then depending on the needs that you have, uh, it goes up. And then some charge just a flat fee. And if you pay that amount, then if you have to go like to dementia care, it would still stay the same amount. So when you start looking, you maybe you could call or find out first about this so that you know um, how much you have to pay, especially if you're private paying. Um, and I will tell you that the attorney that we know, both his parents, he just had to put them both in dementia care. I think they're both in their late 80s. And he's paying $12,000 a month for each of them. So that's $100,000 for 4 months, every 4 months. So whatever assets you have, if that's the care that you need, it's going to go really quick. And especially when you have no assets, and this is where the elder waiver care comes in. So I just found out because we can't private pay anymore. There was not enough to pay November's rent. And I was trying to get a hold. Her social worker now isn't, he's very nice, I think, but um, not as responsive as the lovely person I dealt with before, who was, I mean, and I, listen, I know he's probably overwhelmed. I get it. But I had written him because I try not to bother, if I can just get an answer by email, that would be great. So I emailed last week to no response because I needed to know what I needed to do because her application is still processing. I gave him all the documents they requested. He sent me a list. I checked it off even. I got it like they want the lease. They want, the bank account information. Uh, they just want a bunch of stuff, your medical cards, stuff like that. So I had to go to FedEx. I live in a room. I rent a room. Again, I gave up. I gave up van life for this. I sold my van. I came off the road. It's the first year I'm in Minnesota for the winter, and I've been gone the past 3 years. And so this has upended my whole life. And again, I can't stop working. I have bills to pay. And so the amount of stress I am still under feels insurmountable. And again, next I'm going to talk about caregiver burnout in my next video and how I'm trying to help myself get through this because I have no one, I have no family. I have my daughter, but my daughter has her own, she just got married. She has a full-time job. She's a special needs teacher. She's getting her master's degree in special education, and it's not hers to bear. But if you don't have family and you're like me and it's only you, why I'm doing is this is because I want you to know, had I known this before, things could have been in place. It could have been such a easier transition, and that's what I want you to avoid. Um, and so I'm even more stressed out because I even went and hand delivered to the county these papers 2 weeks ago. And I was trying, and in the midst of this, where my mom is at, her facility is changing management hands. So I just had to sign a new lease. So then I had to send that over to them because it's an updated lease. And they wouldn't get back to me to tell me what I do. Like, what do I pay? I don't know. So nobody was getting back to me. So it was really stressful because I don't want her to just get kicked out or then have a late fee when it wasn't paid because nobody's getting back to me to tell me. Anyway, finally got a hold of um, the new executive director, and I have to pay the base rent. So this is the base rent of $1,170. So her payment, and it's going up because it changed hands. So of course they're going to raise the fees, is around $6,200 a month. So get that. That's the rent, okay, $1,200 about. So whatever services she needs is on top of that. And, she gets around, well, she gets 3 meals a day. And they have a cook that cooks everything. They do a lot of social activities. Um, they do your laundry. You set your laundry outside the door. They'll take it and do it. Your trash, same thing. You set it outside the door. They have nurses that have nurse stations like outside the room. So if anything happens, they disperse her medication both morning and night. And so it's sticker shock if you have not looked into this. But then once you're used to it, 6,200 from after touring other places seems pretty reasonable at this point. But I just got a letter in the mail Friday from the county, and I thought, oh, good, it went through. Like this is going to be like maybe a relief. No, it said that I did not hand in all the documents that were requested. It's still pending. And yeah, but it didn't say what I was missing. So I don't think he works on Friday. And I called him right away and I'm like, I don't know. I went through that list and I marked it off. And please call me as soon as possible so I can get to you what you need. Because I guess then they'll retroactively pay other than the rent, for the services, because that's what the rest of it is. That 1,200 is for rent, the rest of it is for services, and that's what the elder waiver care pays. But on top of that, what they will do, so when she gets on the waiver, she gets Social Security, so we'll pay the base rent, 1,170, and then whatever is left of the Social Security goes to the county or the state. I'm not sure like how it's funded, but uh so then it'll go to them. She gets $126, or she will. She's not on it yet. She'll get $126 a month for herself to spend. That's it. She'll get $126 a month for like spending money or any bills that she has to pay. She has a phone that costs, I think it costs like, it's under $20 a month, but it's about $20. So that's where I personally am at right now. And I want to tell you too, what I found out, there was a really nice lady who we were touring, and she said to make sure that they may say they take elderly waivers, but they may not are able to have it when your person is there, if that makes sense. Like they only can take so many on, because it has to do with, um, medical assistance. And so she said that she's seen before that they said, yes, oh, yes, we have, medical waivers. And then so you move in and then you private pay until you're spent down. And then once you're there, they're like, oh, but we don't have any left for you to be here. And then you have to move the person. And listen, that I think is what has thrown me over the edge on top of all this is that I moved my mom all by myself, all by myself. Other than my daughter and her wife helped with the big stuff. They got their dad's trailer to haul the big stuff. But other than that, I was at Goodwill. I got all the boxes. I moved everything. Uh, and that pretty much, I think, was the start of the real burnout and decline. And then now all the paperwork that I'm dealing with is on top of trying to live my own life. Anyway, I'm already getting long winded, but you can look this up, but you can only have so many assets. So I'm just going to give you kind of the overview of this. Examples of assets that are counted towards. So you only can have $3,000 in assets when you apply for the elderly waiver, which it's like a game. It's a game. It is a game. And the money that you spend to spend down, they even say you can spend down, but it all has to be like medical stuff. So, I mean, which was good because my mom needed a new reading machine. Hers was like 14 years old. She needed new hearing aids. She's profoundly hard of hearing, and she didn't have the Bluetooth ones. She still had the ones like those brown ones that just stick out of your ear. So we got her new hearing aids. So we used that to spend down. But you have a 3,000 asset limit, which includes cash, bank accounts, most retirement accounts, stocks and bonds, savings certificates, non-homestead property, more than one vehicle, and contracts for deeds. And so this is where estate planning comes in because they go back 5 years. And you need to plan before you get to this. And that's why this is imperative. And that's why I'm sharing what I'm going through. I think it'll help me, and hopefully I am hoping to help other people not run into this. Assets that you're generally allowed to keep and don't count toward the asset limit include personal property and household goods, one vehicle, capital assets needed to operate a trade or a business, money set aside for a burial space items for you, your spouse, and other members of your immediate family, certain assets if you are American Indian, Alaskan Native, your home if you live there, intend to return to it, or an exception applies. Okay. So that comes to another thing that we may or may not have to deal with. So I'm going to use having a homestead as an example. If you have no other assets and you have a home and you get the elderly waiver and you move in, then you put your house up for sale because it's an asset and because it's in your name and it's an asset, and you get that money from the sale of the home, they are going to want all their money back, which makes sense. But so it's not like you're going to be able to give it to your kids or I mean, if there's some left over from what you've paid through the elderly waiver. But then also you go back to private pay because then you have more than $3,000 worth of cash assets. And so then you have to go off of the elderly waiver and you go back to private pay until you've spent down, which is not going to take long because again, $6,000, $7,000, $12,000 a month, it's not going to take long to get back down to $3,000. And It says, what if I give assets away to my family? Sometimes people try and give away or transfer assets to become eligible for services like the Elderly Waiver Program. If you do this within 5 years before applying for, so 5 years is the time, or while receiving elderly waiver services. So you cannot give anything away right before, or if you're already in it. You may be subject to a transfer penalty. This means you cannot receive elderly waiver services for a period of time. Types of transfers that may be subject to a transfer penalty include giving away large cash gifts, selling, trading, or giving away items of value for less than they are worth, selling property for less than the estimated market value, putting money into a trust unless it's for someone who is under age 65 and was certified to be a person with a disability at the time the trust was established. So you have to do a trust 5 years before you can apply for, it'll be safe if you have had it in place 5 years before you need an elderly waiver. So I would suggest doing it now. I talked to the guy before, the one who wrote the book, and he talks about if you have so much in assets, you should start looking into that, and you're over a certain age. Establishing an interest in a life estate or items of value such as a pension or inheritance. If you do not qualify because of the penalty period and there are no alternatives, your county or tribal nation may be able to waive the penalty period if your health and well-being are threatened. However, the county or tribal nation may attempt to recover the income or asset from the person to whom you gave the income or asset. So if you did give it to somebody, they have the right to go after that person to get that money back. So that would be something if you got it and for some reason you spent it. And let's say you bought a new house because you got this cash, and they're going to want the money back. I also want you to know that if you do get an elderly waiver, that you still need to complete a medical assistance for long-term care services renewal form to show that you continue to meet the income and asset limits every single year. Okay, so choosing assisted living. If you are not yet on the elder waiver and you plan to move to assisted living, you should start researching possible service providers. Your assisted living provider must be enrolled with the Department of Human Services in order for the elderly waiver to be able to pay them. So you can't just go anywhere and have an elderly waiver. You have to make sure that they're on this list with the department. You can ask providers if they are enrolled, or you can find a list of enrolled providers and then it gives a link to where you can see if the assisted living homes, or find ones that you can go tour or check out. If you're already in assisted living, it will be important to verify the provider is an enrolled provider, because if you're already in assisted living and then you realize, I need to get on the elder waiver, well, if the place that you're at is not enrolled, then you're going to need to move that person if that's what you want to do, is get them on an elder waiver. Okay, and then what if you pass away? What will happen to my family and assets when I pass away? So if you're on the elderly waiver, what's going to happen if there are assets after you pass away? When you pass away, the Department of Human Services is required to try to recover the cost of your elderly waiver services. Repayment of costs ensures there are funds to provide healthcare services to people into the future. The Department of Human Services will try to collect these costs through estate recovery. If you have also received nursing facility for services paid by medical assistants, the cost may also be recovered through a lien. So if you have like a property or something like that, or like a bank account, that they can put a lien on that, because that is money that they want to recover for paying for this person while they were on the elderly waiver and in assisted living. So that's kind of the gist of everything. It's kind of the overview. But again, I just wanted to tell you what I'm going through right now. It hasn't been as easy as I thought. Again, it's a game. It's spending down. When management changed hands, they did not deposit October's check. So it looked like she had like $8,000 in her account, but she didn't, because as they were changing hands, they didn't cash it until like October 28th or something. And so when they did, then I screenshotted the bank account and highlighted like what's in there now. But then she had like 2,000 in there. Then, November 1st, she got her social security check. So then it's like 4,000 and you're supposed to be 3,000 or under, but I couldn't even pay her full payment of 6,200 because there was not even enough money in there. And that's where this stress that I've just gone through or still going through, I'm dealing with. Like they obviously know it costs more, uh, than $4,000 to pay for her next rent, but you have to have 3,000 or less in the account. So I'm kermuffled. So again, where I'm at, dealing with it, it's very stressful, very burnt out, very over it. If I could hand it over to somebody else, I would in a heartbeat. I don't have that luxury or that option. And so this is where I'm at right now. But this is why I'm sharing this information, because I do not want somebody to be in this situation. It's awful. Again, I've had to, and I'm not, people are like, oh, she's so lucky she has you. Honestly, at this moment, I'm kind of resentful. I mean, just towards, that's why I'm in therapy, towards, everything that's happened, my family, and how did we get into this position? How did I get into this position? And especially when, I was a single mom, I raised my daughter, she's now on her own. And, you think life's going to begin and you're going to be able to, work to save to head into retirement. Yeah, I've been looking for a job. That's been another story that I'll talk about coming up. And so it just is not easy. And I don't want to sugarcoat it. And I don't want you to think I'm some saint or something like that, because I'm not. I'm mad. I'm resentful. And it's not my mom's fault. Do you know what I mean? It's not against her. It's just the way things are. And like I said, my family, the system, everything. But again, I just don't want you to be in this situation. So there you go. Okay, next up, I'm going to talk about caregiver burnout. And again, now that I've sitting here talking about it, again, I'm trying to make myself get up and just engage in life, because there are mornings I wake up and I don't want to face it. I get something in the mail, I get an email, and it's just more stuff that I have to do. And I just want to not have any responsibility except for like working, and working out and taking care of my own life, which is, a handful enough. But yeah, so that's where I'm going to leave you. So I hope this helps somebody. I hope it gets you thinking about, please start thinking about estate planning way before you get to this point. It's just a travesty that that is just so hard. And again, I feel like it's just a game. Um, so you know what to do. Go out and make an adventure, no matter how big or how small. You do not have to sell everything and move into a van, because I had to sell my van, and this is a whole new adventure that I never planned on. Go call someone you love, and don't you dare forget your magic. I will see you in the next one. Bye.